Please take a moment to celebrate and recognize this ancestral Ho-Chunk land and the sacred lands of all Indigenous peoples. Will the secretary please call the roll?
Ms. Baumann?
Here.
Ms. Bergdahl? Here. Dr. Garcia?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Dr. Jimenez?
Here.
Mr. Neumeister?
Here.
Mr. Korberg?
Here.
Dr. Sprague?
Here.
Ms. Sukla?
Here.
A quorum of the Board of Education is present, so the regularly scheduled meeting of May 1st, 2023 is called to order. We will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand and face the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Tonight's agenda has previously been distributed to the board with a motion by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Jimenez. The motion has been approved as submitted unless there is a motion to amend. Hearing none. We do a voice vote for this one? Okay. All members who approve say aye.
Aye.
And oppose? Motion carries. Tonight we have one public speaker registered. It is the policy of the board to provide at its public meetings an opportunity for individuals to address the board. Comments about individual staff or personnel will not be allowed. Open meeting law prohibits the board from engaging in discussion or responding to matters not included on the agenda. All speakers are reminded that this same policy limits your time to speak to 5 minutes. This limit will be strictly enforced. May I ask the superintendent to keep track of the time and to notify the speaker when time is running out?
I will.
You are also asked to give your name and the school district where you reside at the beginning of your time for the public record. Our first speaker tonight is Maggie Mock.
Good evening. My name is Maggie Mock, and I am a 9th grader at Central High School. I have attended a school within the district of La Crosse for the entirety of my education. I am here tonight to discuss the new grading policy for next year. The district is in the process of switching to standards-based grading. This year was supposed to be a transition year so that teachers and students could prepare and familiarize themselves with the system. However, even though we are more than 3/4 of the way through this school year, the district has not yet communicated a clear plan for next year. Is this because the district is withholding information, or worse, is it because the district lacks a plan? Either scenario is inexcusable, especially since it is now too late to open enroll for a school in another district. I have talked to multiple teachers, and even they are unsure how to answer my questions. This lack of information is causing stress for students like me who plan to attend a post-secondary institution. My concern is that standards-based grading is a 4-point scale in which a 3/proficient is the target. However, in the gradebook, that is calculated as a 75% or a C. Often, criteria are only given to meet the proficient standard, and in order to receive a 4/advanced, the equivalent of an A, many teachers simply state to go above and beyond. Alternatively, teachers require tasks that before were optional as extra credit, but that now are necessary to achieve a 4. Extra credit is expressly no longer allowed at Central High School. In the past, students earned an A by properly accomplishing all of the tasks that teachers set forth, not by exceeding their expectations. As someone who is concerned with maintaining the highest grade point average possible, any C's that result from receiving a proficient score would hinder my ability to get into a college or to receive scholarships. I'm sure that I speak for others as well. This change in the grading policy could affect every student's ability in this district to attend a post-secondary institution or to get hired for a job. Students from the La Crosse School District have to compete against students from districts that don't use this grading system. Therefore, standards-based grading would likely be a disadvantage. Standards-based grading is appropriate for elementary school because there are far fewer standards, and these grades do not affect a student's future. What is the research-based data for applying this model at the high school level? If the La Crosse School District follows through with standards-based grading for grades 9 through 12, the highest achieving students may opt to open enroll out of this district. For these reasons, I believe that switching to standards-based grading at the high school level is the wrong choice for the La Crosse School District.
Thank you. We will now move on to recognitions tonight, student artwork selections, which is one of my personal favorite nights of the year. And I'll hand it off to Dr. Engel.
We're so thankful to have had this process in place for many years here in the school district of La Crosse, and we have some fantastic folks that help ensure that this program goes off, our wonderful art teachers. And I would have Mrs. Casey Sherrill here, if you want to introduce the program and what's going on tonight.
Sorry, many mics at once. All right, before we get started with the Youth Art Month portion of the meeting, I'm going to give the floor to Spence art teacher, Ms. Rana Metz, to finish up what she started last time with you.
Hello. We're here to celebrate student artists, but last month you all were the artists and the students were the teachers for many of you that were here. And so the students taught the board members how to do some origami folding, and the board members had written their goals and aspirations as board members, so those are embedded in the design, and then they put it together and we are presenting it to you here this evening. So for your viewing pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Metz. Good evening. I'm Casey Shrell. I am the visual arts teacher at Southern Bluffs and Cooley Montessori, as well as the K-12 art coordinator for content. Today we pause to celebrate and reflect on the creative minds and souls within the school district of La Crosse. Between March and April, our K-12 artists celebrate successes and challenges of their art process with Youth Art Month, a collection of art shows throughout our city to inspire and foster creativity. Our board members are invited each year to attend an art show of one school and choose an artwork that speaks to them the most from a specific artist. Today, we will get to meet those artists and hear why the board members chose them out of all of the options on display. But before we get to that, I would like to take a moment to put a spotlight on the driving force behind building these young artists, our visual arts teachers. These men and women behind me work to build strong, long-lasting relationships with students, and we are lucky to spend upwards of 6 years with them. Our teachers weave social-emotional learning and creative process seamlessly together to instill confidence that each and every student can be an artist, regardless of background, socioeconomic status, race, gender, sexual orientation, or ability. Oftentimes, you will find art teachers connecting with students that struggle to find passion and perspective with reading, math, and writing, and instead have a creative mind that's looking to be fostered and supported and feel seen. My art colleagues work tirelessly to help each child find their purpose and passion and pride when they finally master that painting technique they have been practicing or finish the clay project that they never thought would get finished. Art teachers are more than just teachers that get to play with glitter and clay all day. They are difference makers in the lives of so many students. Over the last 5 years, we have seen an increase in traveling teachers, dramatic decrease in our supply budgets, and more asked of us to be flexible and meet the needs of our students. And we do, and it's not always easy. The Department of Public Instruction suggests $7 per student. The average in the school district of La Crosse is $3, which really hinders what we are able to do with our students. But we do the best that we can with what we have. We often spend much of our own money to get supplies for our students, or spend dozens of hours working on fundraisers to get a very minute amount back. We stay late, working hard to create opportunities for our students to create art shows and fill our halls with art and creativity. And it's all possible because of the hardworking art teachers. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask them to stand when I call them and give a show of gratitude when all have risen. James Oldenburg, Hinchin and Bluffview Academy. Ashley Jeffers, State Road and Bluffview Academy. Rana Metz, Spence, Bethany Nugent, Hamilton, Soda 1, and Logan High. Rachel Hoshite, Emerson and Logan High. Amarina Rathke, Northside and CRVA. Johnny Ray Wilt, Summit and Cooley Montessori. Marcy Tauscher, Northwoods and CRVA. Shelley Walter Reinders, Longfellow. Clinton Grabhorn, Longfellow. Hannah Carson, Lincoln and Soda 2. Patrick Sullivan, Lincoln and Logan Middle. Sherry Sikora, Logan Middle. Lori Aschenbrenner, Central. Alicia Cruiser, Logan High. Joe Beck, Logan High. Please give a round of applause to the amazing art teachers in the School District of La Crosse. In a moment, I'm going to ask the students to come on stage and sit with your board member. Now, there are a few that have been chosen that do not have a seat on the board, so you'll just stand by your person, students. Board members, I ask that you hold up the artwork to show them where they will need to go. You will also notice there is a certificate that you will end up giving them before they leave tonight. Once we get settled, we'll begin presentations. Students, please come on stage and find your artwork. And since there's not a chair, but I'm going to be the first one to go.
Oh, you rose? Fantastic. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
This is amazing. Want to have a seat?
Sure.
Take the comfy chair.
All right, has everyone been introduced? Okay, so I had the privilege of choosing the artwork for Emerson Elementary, and I chose Maeve Moran, and this is, I'm going to show everybody up here too. I think you can imagine the first thing I captured my attention was the really vibrant colors. I'm definitely a color person, and Maeve, it looks like you really put a lot of effort into this, and it kind of spoke to my soul. When I went to go choose art, I was working on hour 12 and a half of work, and so I was feeling a little run down and overwhelmed, and I saw this and it just brought me peace. And so I don't have a pleasure of being on the board, but I hope it brings peace to all the people that are on our board. So is there anything you want to tell us about your artwork? No? Okay, awesome. Thanks, Maeve. You can go take a seat.
Hello, everyone. So this is Eliana. I'm so honored to meet you. And I saw her artwork. I absolutely loved the detail. Extremely talented. I told Eliana I would love to go to an art show someday of yours because I will buy all of your art. But not only the detail, if you look closely, there's someone sitting in the woods. And while I'm a person that I love to get lost in the woods, and as I understand it, Eliana was trying to depict feeling lost. But I also saw that the creatures in the woods might be supporting that feeling of loss that we all feel from time to time. So as you can see, your artwork really resonated with me. Is there anything else you would add about your art?
No, I don't think so.
All right, Eliana. And I have Ivy McLaughlin, right? McLaughlin. So, and she is the third grade student at Hinchin. And when I went to the Southside Community Library for the art show. This piece spoke to me right away. It's a beautiful picture of a male sparrow. And so right away, though, I noticed how the colors, not only in the sparrow, are reflected in the background. And I thought that was very striking. But then I went and talked to your art teacher. And he told me, and I kind of asked Mr. Oldenburg, I said, what different art techniques have you been working on in class? And he told me that you've been working on dry brush, which you spread out the bristles of the brush, and that's what made the details for the feathers on this. And that you also used what's called a wet-on-wet technique to create the background, and it makes an atmospheric effect. And so I just was so impressed by the art techniques that she used in this, not to mention the coloring, and it also, like everyone else, spoke to my soul. I live in the woods and I feed my birds, and so this is what I see often, and so I just loved it. Do you have anything that you would like to add? No?
Okay, so I have. Hold it up. There you go. So we have John here from Soda 1, and I'm missing Elena from Hamilton. And we are keeping the bird theme going, and these are both beautiful bluebirds. And I would be interested, John, do you remember what your teacher asked of you when you drew this bird?
No.
Well, I am thinking that maybe that bluebirds bring us happiness. And your bluebird and Elena's bluebird will bring us happiness all year long, and they are beautiful. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Katie, and this is Ren Saunders Scott. She's a 6th grader at Longfellow. And I was able to go to the public library and select student artwork from Longfellow. And when I walked in, this piece literally took my breath away. I was like, what is that? And I know we're not really supposed to pick 3D ones because we can't hang it on the wall as easily, but we'll pick whatever you want. I did. So, I love the colors. I could tell that she put a ton of effort into it. And there was one right behind it that was equally cool, also by Ren, and I had a really hard time standing there and trying to decide which one that I was going to select. Do you want to say anything about it, Ren?
I really like it. It was kind of hard to make, but I think it turned out good.
Turned out really well, and I apologize to both of my young artists that you don't get to take it home as soon as you probably would like to, but we'll make sure you get it back. So great job. This is Noella Ashby. She's also a 6th grader at Longfellow. And after I selected Ren's, I went upstairs at the library and right away noticed this cool dragon, and I was like, that is super cool. And I liked how it looks like there's 3 different moons and a really colorful dragon, and I just loved the whole thing. And then I looked at who made it, and I was like, oh my God, that's Noella. She's my neighbor. So I was super impressed. And I know Noella is the ultimate creative person in our neighborhood, so I thought you might have a few words to describe what you did here.
It is mostly based off of a book that I read a while ago that I really liked. The 3 moons and this.
Very cool. Anything else?
Not really.
I'm Brad, and I had an opportunity to also go to the middle school drawings and artwork at the main public library. I think there were 5 areas that we had to look at artwork, and so there was a lot to select from. I selected a piece from Aisha Smith. Aisha's an 8th grader at Logan Middle, and this acrylic just stuck out to me right away as soon as I saw it. it made me think of, besides being beautiful, it made me think of being out west and seeing mountains, which are always so breathtaking, and it almost actually kind of made me feel like I was there. And sometimes I wish I were there, but anyway, you did a great job. She's a little quiet and a little shy, so I won't. Unless you want to say something. No, she doesn't. But she did a great job with this acrylic, and I want to thank you for allowing us to use it, because it'll hang up in our room here, and we'll get to look at it for the next year. So thank you.
All right, so I got the opportunity to pick from Logan High School. This beautiful piece was done by Ivan Engen. He is not here tonight to hear me say amazing things about this really beautiful painting, but I'll say them anyway. So it was really hard to choose. Logan has some really great artists, and Ivan had a couple pieces that were really amazing and really stood out. In addition to this beautiful acrylic, he had a paisley pink French top coat, and I was just impressed with the range that this young artist has, that he could go from acrylic paint to textile designs. I picked this one though because it reminded me of my grandpa, who was just an avid fisherman and outdoorsman in Wisconsin. So when I saw it, I instantly was filled with emotion and thinking about my grandpa and how much I miss him. So, although Ivan isn't here, I hope you can appreciate it from the crowd.
I was fortunate to be able to choose from Northwoods Elementary, and this is from Rose Semple. This drawing is based on a Mexican bark drawing style, I believe, and I was impressed by the colors, by the proportions of things, the balance of the colors in the drawing. It just really spoke to me. My mom was a K-6 art teacher for 30 years, so elementary art rooms are one of my homes, and so I love to go in, take a sniff real quick of all the chemicals that are in there, and it reminds me of my mom. And my parents also like to travel, and they go to Mexico relatively frequently, so this also brought back my mom because of the sorts of artwork she's looking for down there when she travels. So congratulations, Rose, a beautiful, beautiful drawing.
My artist also couldn't be here this evening, but I have Atina Vu. I hope I'm saying her name right. Atina Vu's work. She's a fifth grader at Spence Elementary. I was really taken with the warm and cool color combos and the softness of the chalk against the harder lines that look kind of like stained glass around the edges. It kind of makes you want to touch it. Actually, the superintendent reached out. I was like, what is that? So there's something very tactile about it, and also very visually appealing and very balanced. It really drew me in, so it was beautiful work.
So I had the pleasure of two schools, and the first one is Northside Elementary with Baobai Tao, and I really appreciated her artwork. It reminded me, just like Dr. Garcia mentioned, of stained glass. I thought of something that you would find in an old building in the woods that celebrates nature, and so I was just so taken aback. It was kind of like Ms. Bergadal said, it just took my breath away the first moment I saw it. So is there anything you want to add to it? Okay. Congratulations. And so then I also got to choose from Cooley Montessori, and this is Catlea Flores. And Catlea's piece of artwork, again, really inspired me. She was working from looking at Kandinsky and abstractionism and how you can see and hear art. And then there's a self-portrait in the middle, so she was able to connect that artist with herself. And I just really loved that ability to do that connection in between. So muchas gracias, Catlea. Congratulations.
Hello. So I have the pleasure to show a piece by Miss Faye Addington. She is a second grader at Southern Bluffs. So the selection of this piece was a collaboration of myself and my peers here at Hogan. We each looked at a number of different art pieces, but the majority landed on this one, and I think we were all taken aback by just the different and variety of colors that she used. We really liked the clean lines of the white piece, but then also the different patterns within each section and how each section is kind of a different shape all throughout. So it's a very unique and just colorful, bright piece that we all really enjoyed looking at, and we look forward to having it here in the boardroom. Did you want to say anything?
All right, unfortunately, a presenter wasn't able to be here, so I will be writing what she said. So this is an artwork by Nora. She's a 5th grader at Summit Elementary. And the chooser said, "When I look at this piece, I am reminded of walking with my dog and taking in the beauty of the nature around me. Walking with my dog is my favorite moment each day that brings me joy. No matter what has happened that day or what mood I'm in, I always feel happier and lighter after spending some time in nature with him. This piece brings out those joyful feelings for me." So nice job, Nora. Do you want to say anything? All right.
Hello, I'm grateful to return tonight because I was really looking forward to talking to the artist, Max Tondola, is that right? To hear their inspiration for this piece. So what I loved about this piece was the strength and beauty struck me right away. I saw the athleticism and also the gracefulness of the dancer. And my daughter was a dancer, so I know how hard and how much you work as a dancer, and I could see that right away. And then I also loved all the colors, the whimsical colors behind, just the balance of the intricate detail of the dancer, and then the colors that kind of blended behind. I just loved the combination. And I was really hoping I could hear the inspiration of why it was, or why you came up with this piece.
So the inspiration for this piece, we were doing a watercolor project, and I had been looking on different websites, and I've been really into looking at, like, what's the word? I want to say not model, but the anatomy of the body. And whenever I looked at dancers on like different websites like Pinterest, I was always amazed at how flexible and beautiful and delicate they all looked. And I just really wanted to bring that into a piece of work.
And you did, it's fantastic.
All right, one more round of applause for our young artist. Congratulations. You can go join your families, and board members, if you haven't given the certificate yet, please do so at this time, and you can head back to your families.
Yeah, have a great day.
I just want to congratulate everyone out there. I didn't get to see that.
Should be on naturally.
Thank you.
Need to hang some shelves in there.
right, so I'll wait maybe one more minute before moving on with our agenda to the artists and their supporters. If you want to stick around, you're welcome to, but if you have other commitments tonight, feel free to head out.
All of our supporters.
The consent agenda is a mechanism used by the board to deal with routine business that must come before the body. Are there any items that members want to remove from the consent agenda?
From either one?
Just this one.
I'll make a motion to approve the items on the superintendent's consent agenda as presented. Second.
Did you, Ms. Sukla, did you have something you wanted to say?
on the board consent agenda. So I just want to be clear. Okay, thank you.
So with a motion by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Jimenez, the items on the superintendent's consent agenda are approved as presented unless there are any objections. Hearing none, we can move on to the board consent agenda.
And I'll make a motion to approve the items on the board consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any items that the members want to remove from the consent agenda?
I just had two questions. On the minutes, it has a first reading of the bylaws, the salary and expense for the board. And according to the bylaws, a second reading would occur at the next regular meeting, and I didn't see it on the agenda. Is that something that will be coming up?
The bylaws, my understanding from the policies is that policies themselves do require 2 readings, bylaws do not.
So there should be a second reading.
It's a bylaws change, so there would not be a second reading. There would not have to be. Policies, yes. Bylaws, no.
Are there any remaining?
Yeah, my other question was, okay, I gotta learn how to use an iPad, sorry.
It's okay.
How do I get back? Sorry.
It usually opens up like another tab.
Okay, thank you. Or there. Yeah. Okay, and then the charter school contract, when was that added? Was that added today? And if it was, my question, if it was added today, my question was on open meeting law, that wouldn't have provided enough notice for an agenda. So that was my question.
The item was added as an attachment under board consent agenda.
Was the public content item, was it listed before? I can't remember when I looked at it
Yes,
yesterday.
I just needed to upload the attachment.
Okay,
today.
that's all I needed to know. I just want to make sure that we were in, okay, thank you. Appreciate your patience with me.
Thank you, Ms. Sukla. I think we already had a motion. So with a motion by Mr. Korberg and a second by Dr. Jimenez, the items on the board consent agenda are approved as presented unless there are objections. Hearing none, we can move on to the information portion of our meeting. So these items do not require board action tonight. And I'll pass the baton to Dr. Engel to introduce the La Crosse Public Education Foundation report.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have Ms. Nell Saunders-Scott, Executive Director of the La Crosse Public Education Foundation, to give us a report today. Under information, we bring forward matters of public interest and those that affect the school district. So I will turn it over to Ms. Saunders-Scott.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share an update about La Crosse Public Education Foundation's activities for the past school year. It is a little bit of a clash of my worlds here, having my daughter here as well. So thank you for your attention to our artists. It's always an honor to be with others who care deeply about public education. First, I want to congratulate the new members of the board, Scott, Jeff, Trevor, and welcome back, Deb. I'm grateful to all of you for stepping up to serve your community in this important way. And I also want to acknowledge the newly elected officers, especially Annie. Annie, we thank you so much for your time on the LPF board as the Board of Education rep. We will miss you, but we're certain that your steady and deliberate approach will serve you and this board really well in your role as president. So thank you. And finally, thank you to Katie for stepping up to fill the LPF board rep role. We can't wait to work with you. Thank you all. So we have some LPEF experts in the room, and some of you who may not be as familiar, I'll try to thread the needle on the amount of information here as I share about what LPEF is and what we've been up to this past year. LPF started in 1988, and our mission has been much the same since the beginning, to support enhanced educational experiences for students in the school district of La Crosse and to promote community understanding and support for public education. LPEF has been awarding grants to teachers since our inception, and our other core program, Random Acts of Kindness, has been around a long time too. I'm trying to nail down what that date is, but I haven't found it yet. If anybody knows, let me know. In the 2022 calendar year, LPEF played a role in directing over $330,000 in support to the school district of La Crosse. We seek to be a primary funding partner for the school district, and we're grateful for the multitude of ways that our community supports public schools, whether giving directly to schools through PTOs or other school supporting organizations, and through LPEF. During this past school year, LPEF funded 45 Gold Star grants totaling $90,000. These grants were written by teachers, staff, and learning partners to enhance the educational opportunities and professional development available in the school district of La Crosse. This year, Gold Star grants brought nationally known authors to speak to middle schoolers, funded school-wide artist in residence projects, provided adaptive PE equipment, and supported important training for early childhood teachers. And I know we also supported many of these wonderful art teachers here. So there's lots of different projects that get supported. Our Gold Star Grants program is well established, and it's responsive to the professional expertise of our faculty and the needs of students. We're really excited to continue growing the funding available for grants because we know it's a very efficient way to put community support into action in our schools. Another significant way that LPEF leverages community support for schools and students is through Random Acts of Kindness. With our recently concluded campaign to endow the Random Acts of Kindness Forever Fund, community support for RAK has never been higher. The RAK Forever Fund ensures that funding will be available forever so that school staff can flexibly remove barriers that students are facing. If something is making it difficult for a student to get to school, to be ready to learn, or to participate fully in school activities, RAK funds are there to help. And during this school year, school staff have distributed about $30,000 in RAK funds so far. We also serve as a conduit for community support for a number of other projects, like reading tutors at Northside and Hamilton Elementaries, and some book vending machines at Hinchin and Southern Bluffs, thanks to generosity from Trust Point. And since 2020, LPEF has been honored to serve as the fiscal sponsor for the Solar on La Crosse Schools organization. And SOLS has successfully installed solar arrays on Hamilton and Northside Elementaries, reducing energy costs to the district. They just recently completed fundraising for an array on Polytechnic, and installation will begin soon, and they're working on raising funds for an outdoor solar classroom at Summit Elementary. So it's really exciting to be playing a small behind-the-scenes role in those cost savings and forward-thinking projects. This school year has continued to be a rebuilding year for LPEF after challenging pandemic years and a complete transition of our staff in the last year and a half. Our operations coordinator, Amy McKnight, joined us last summer, and we, along with our great board of directors, are honored to connect community resource with school district needs. All that LPEF has been able to accomplish this year is due to collaborative partnership with district staff. So I think Dr. Engel and Patty and everyone else here at the table, and everyone in Hogan and throughout the district, and because of our community's generosity. LPEF is continuing to be committed to being a primary funding partner of the school district of La Crosse, and we know that connections with members of the board here and others here tonight are vital. So my door is open to all of you, and I welcome conversation about opportunities to deepen LPEF's efforts to enhance the learning experiences in the school district of La Crosse and to promote our community's understanding of public education. So thanks again for the chance to share and for your service. And I don't think there's time for questions, but email me if you have questions.
Are there any questions from the board before you?
I'm happy to take any.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you do for the school district and your advocacy, and you're leveling up a really important role, and it's just great to see you in it. So thank you.
Thank you. It's truly, truly an honor. So.
Thank you now. All right, right, next on our agenda is Results Monitoring Report R3.4, Involved Citizenship, and I'll pass it over to Dr. Engel again.
For this report, I'm going to start by making Dr. Lehucky stand there for a little bit longer than normal, in part just because I want to cover a little bit about results and a little bit about monitoring. I know we have some board members who are a little newer. You probably haven't gotten all through this book yet, and so I thought I'd cover just kind of a brief outline of what it is for the benefit of this process. So coherent governance provides a framework for the board to do its job and to express clear expectations for organizational performance. Coherent governance is geared to meet the specific conditions that exist in public education with elected board members, a little bit different than policy governance, which is a little bit more broader. Policies are a reflection of values, and the board has captured its values in these policies. Additionally, the issues on which boards spend most of their time reflect the things they believe to be most important. A primary focus on results shows the board believes student achievement and all that it encompasses to be the most important thing. I thought today's artwork presentation was a great example of results. It's the things that students produce, and spending that time is a great way for the board to demonstrate its commitment to student achievement. In this framework, the board determines in policy the results to be achieved. Once the board has determined what must be achieved, it then delegates to the superintendent and the staff the decisions related to how the results are to be achieved. But the superintendent and staff choices must be made within the decision-making parameters defined by the board in its operational expectations policies. All of this works if the board is diligent in performing its critical role in this exchange, which is effectively monitoring results progress. Quality results monitoring allows the board to monitor the progress being made incrementally by the organization to achieve the board's results, and build a portfolio of superintendent performance in the results half of the superintendent's job expectations. Results monitoring is a two-step process. First, the board accepts the superintendent's interpretation of the policy, choice of indicators, baseline data, and both short and long-term performance targets. And this is accomplished each year after the relevant monitoring report is presented and reviewed. So each year the board looks at those monitoring reports, reconsiders them, determines if those are the indicators that they want monitored, the benchmarks that they think are desirable, and the school district seeks out to achieve those results again in the following year. Second, the full monitoring report is presented to the board, including data for each indicator, analysis of the data, and conclusions regarding progress. And that's what's going to be happening here today in part. We have traditionally broken up the monitoring of our results policies so that they're aligned with the timing of when the relevant data is available. We're getting results all throughout the year, and a test that we take in March, we might not get the results back until November of that same year. And so we want the board to get those results when it matters most, when it's hitting the public in terms of news reporting and other things, when it's being collected. And so we've broken up our results policies throughout the year as opposed to our monitoring or our operational expectations that are usually chunked all together. This ensures the board gets timely data and keeps a continual focus on student results. In this case tonight, Results Policy 3, Involved Citizenship, indicates that students will demonstrate the educational, social, and cultural competency necessary to participate as contributing citizens to diverse global communities. And it identifies 6 subcomponents. Tonight, we're monitoring item number 4, practice good stewardship towards the environment. There's a printout next to you that has kind of that graphic which shows the arrangement of these processes. You can see monitoring there comes in with student results, and it's back up to the board there. And then there's a second handout just in case you want it physically at hand while you're looking at other things. Our results policy number 3, which has R3.4 within it. Depending on the subject matter expert, we have different individuals presenting on results and operating expectations. One of our frequent guests is Dr. Michael Lahucky. He is our Director of Curriculum Instruction and Assessment, as well as wearing many other hats. And he is our results guru by and large, and so I welcome Dr. Lahucky.
Thank you. Good evening. I have to admit, I was planning on describing results policies, and I would have been done in about 30 seconds. So I really appreciate Dr. Engel being more comprehensive in the description. Sets the stage for what's to come next. Results policy 3.4, environmentalism in action. This one is unique, which is an interesting one to have our very first, for those new to the board, very first board report or results board report for, because it doesn't have your traditional data. There's not a standardized test. There's not classroom assessment that we use. Instead, the verb in this particular results policy is practice. So it is doing. So the data that we talk about is more of a highlight of what happens in the district on a yearly basis, rather than this is the amount of students proficient and advanced in a particular content area. So with that being said, I use the definition that Summit Environmental School uses as part of their school improvement plan, and we focus in on the action. So not just learning about it, but actually doing something. The action is what we're focused upon. I gotta say, very hard to collect this information. If it's part of your DNA, science joke, it is something you do on a regular basis, and it is hard to capture that. Sort of like volunteerism, we just do it, right? So the very best I can do is to capture as many things as I can and share them with the board and the community. For your reference, I have the 2021 and 22 data. From last year. I will say many of these same projects and actions continued on to this year, but I tried to focus in on new activities to highlight in 2022 and 23. So just going over a few of them, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the ongoing project at Logan High School, restoring a prairie or building a prairie from scratch with numerous partners in our community. It is a very comprehensive project, and Mark Ziegler, a teacher over at Logan High School, definitely needs some public accolades for his work in leading this project. Our AP Environmental Science exam, or students who choose not to take the AP exam, instead do an environmental survey project. I will say personally, this is an area I'm going to dive into next year for the board report to find out more what those service learning projects are in lieu of the AP exam. Another one to highlight is our partnership with Crosse. That's a common theme you'll hear with environmentalism in action, is that we have many community partners that we work with. Grow La Crosse currently has school gardens in 7 out of our 9 elementary sites, and we are working on plans to get it in all 9. That's a big deal if we can do that, because then that gives us the opportunity to really build in, grow within our regular curriculum. We want in the school district of La Crosse to have as much guaranteed and viable curriculum as possible, meaning that no matter where you go, whatever school you're at, you get these high quality experiences. So having that baseline school garden in all of our sites is really a goal for next year. And I won't make the grow pun because we're trying to grow. But anyway, I guess I did. And then the next one is recycling practices. I could have listed, 20 different ways that we're recycling in the district. Instead, I just had the generic term of recycling practices. There's some unique ones with paper making. Tree planting was pretty popular in our schools. Whether it was, here's a tree that you can bring home to plant, or enhancing our school grounds by planting trees on site. Summit Elementary is an environmentally based summer school, elementary school. And every Friday, once a month, they have, during their WIN time, which is called What I Need, an environmental focus. So every student in the school participates in some environmental action, either on site or because it's Summit it might be using the river or whatever natural resources are nearby. So it's pretty neat, and I'm going to talk more about Summit Elementary and their next steps when we talk about what happens in this upcoming year. Before they do that, though, I did want to mention curriculum. Yes, I know that this results policy is about action, but I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the intentionality that we have of environmentalism within our general curriculum. If you look there, it starts at our kindergarten level and keeps going on through our AP offerings at the high school as well. Finally, next steps. So I listed some of them, and I will tell you, after I submitted the board report, I started to learn more, or forgot that there's another ongoing project, and it was funny because LPF just mentioned it as well. So I'll add that one to next steps orally. The first is develop a timely tracking system that monitors participation outcomes is needed. I know we're not capturing everything we do in as much detail as we can. We're reliant on people to share with us, and we're humble by nature. So it is hard to get some of these great works in action often. Find ways to build environmental science activities directly into the curriculum rather than by teacher supplementation. Two partners we have with that are the Nature Place, normally known as WISCOR. That is a group that we're working with. Also, I mentioned Grow earlier, to build those partnerships within our curriculum so each and every student has access to them. That is the goal. That is what we're working on. We have two conferences coming up. The first is we will host the statewide Wisconsin Society of Science Teachers in April of 2024. Teachers will come around the state, come visit us, come visit our sites, and see the great things we're doing for environmental inaction. That's spearheaded by our content area coordinators, Marcia Gardner and Tim Sprain. They serve on the state committee and do a wonderful job facilitating that. The second is Summit Elementary will be a field trip site for the Midwest 2023 Environmental Education Conference. So we'll have people from the Midwest come visit Summit to see some of those things that I briefly described. We also have staff that will present at the conference. So we are known around the Midwest for doing great things environmentally. Mention the Grow partnership, build units and lessons throughout the district. Nature Place, we are having teachers work with the Nature Place to do some collaborative training and just to explore some partnerships and ways that we can work even more than we do already. We currently have our students at the elementary in certain grades coming to the Nature Place already. How can we expand that partnership across the district? Finally, continue to investigate other ways to measure this indicator. Every other indicator or every other results policy outcome, there'll be multiple indicators that we'll talk about. This particular one has been a bit challenging. For those who've been on the board for a while, we talked about citizen science, and that didn't really land like we wanted to. So we are measuring it through just the highlight reel of the school district of La Crosse, reaching out to different folks of how can we measure the practice of something. It's challenging. It's not a survey, right? It's action. Finally, and now from LPF, recognized or brought this to light earlier, the solar on La Crosse schools, the solar projects that happen at a number of our schools, Northside, Cooley Montessori, Hamilton, La Crosse Polytechnic's coming on. This weekend, it was Earth Day at La Crosse at the Myrick Park. If you happen to be there, we had a nice presentation to the community on this project. Once again, another partnership in the school district of La Crosse. We're fortunate in that regard. Do you have any questions about results policy 3.4?
Questions from the board? Comments?
You've kind of addressed this already a little bit. So in the development of a timely tracking system, and it says here on your note number 1, that many environmental activities have not been documented. I'm curious, as I'm looking through this, do we have any sense of the number of students, and is that one of the areas you're looking at? How can we count heads so that when we're looking at a policy that says students will, we have some surety that it's like a majority of the students, right?
Right, and I think the best way to do that is to build it intentionally part of our curriculum. When I mentioned that supplementation, for example, we have some schools that are able to go to the fish hatchery in Genoa, some don't, right? Are we able to build that in so all of our students can go? That's the kind of work we want to do. The work with Grow Lacrosse, if we all have school gardens, we can build that in. So those experiences are for everyone in the district.
And they're tracking data too, you could.
Correct, yes.
Right.
They are as well, and when we talk to Nature Place, that's something we want to discuss with them as well. Like, how can we talk about the students that come to you? How can we find out what that action looks like? Plus the learning, of course.
I have a few questions, Dr. Lahefty. You had mentioned that the data for presentation, it's hard to gather. So what is done currently? What are some examples of how you've gathered data for this results indicator?
Sure. I work with the science teachers in the district at the secondary level. So we'll mention it a few times per year, and then I track it through a Google form.
Sure.
As things come up, please fill out the Google form, and I collect it that way. At the elementary, instead of emailing every teacher, I'll go to some go-to people in each of the schools to capture as many of the activities as they can. For the purpose of the report, as I mentioned, I didn't want to put on there 20 different recycling opportunities. That's a pretty common one. So I tried to capture it in one, but know that it did occur more.
Sure. When I look at the indicator, it states the amount of opportunities for students to engage in acts of environmentalism will increase over the previous year. So I was looking just at, what did we do in one year? What did we do in the following year? Has it increased? I mean, so for me, at least, I noticed that there was a little bit of an increase, but noting that you can't capture everything because you're doing your best, and as you mentioned, we are humble by nature.
It's fair. It's a fair point. So that is one of the reasons I included the 2021-22 as those were ongoing activities. So for the most part, these were above what was done the previous year. Or more candidly, they were captured this year. Correct. They may have occurred last year as well.
Sure.
This is a really hard one to measure.
Absolutely.
Compared to the other ones.
Yeah. So, and you also mentioned that building of activities into the curriculum rather than by teacher supplementation. So how does ensuring that we are building the activities into the curriculum benefit faculty and students?
How does it benefit?
Yeah, so if you have standardized as opposed to teacher supplementation, maybe even explaining what we mean by teacher supplementation.
Sure. Emerson Elementary, because of its location, can walk to many places to have those experiences. Mm-hmm. We found that students at Southern Bluffs didn't have that same option. They just can't walk to those places. So what we've done is try to standardize our funding in a way so that students at Southern Bluffs can be bused just as often as Emerson wants to walk. With that being said, we didn't put a cap on Emerson. They can still keep walking, but the opportunities that we build in the curriculum, we've built in for every student in the district rather than where your geographic location would be.
Great. Yeah, so ensuring that every student has an equal opportunity.
Correct.
For the same things.
Right, and if it's part of the curriculum, it happens, rather than if you have a teacher just has a particular passion, or maybe even a relationship with someone.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part, right? That's how we benefit students and faculties, by ensuring all students have equitable access to experiences versus just the relationships that an instructor may have or the location where the school may be, which could potentially help or hinder student opportunities. So, and I appreciate that.
Well said.
Yeah. What are you thinking in terms of other ways to measure this indicator? I think you mentioned a few things. I just want to. I put that on the Google form. So I tried to farm this one out a little bit and say, what are some meaningful ways that you can measure this? Some things like a quantity of items recycled. If it's the solar project, how many kilowatts of sun did we capture as a district? Those are things that are quantifiable and are easier to report on. Those are things that we may look at when I come with changes in January for Results Policy 3 for your consideration if we're on the right track. Sure. And I would say don't forget the qualitative, right? It's
Correct.
Just as important and just as valuable, harder to measure, but I think is important as well. And my last question is, I can't go past this results indicator without mentioning something about climate, right? I mean, this is specifically talking about the environment and the responsible use that we are teaching our students environmental sustainability. So how does this results policy support us in making measurable effects to climate action or climate awareness for our students as they move through their educational career here at the School District of La Crosse? We have a lot of groups who are concerned about climate activism. I think there's a lot of questions about climate activism in our community, in our nation, in the world. And so how does this benefit our climate as a whole and our society as a whole?
That's a big question. I would say where you focus is where you grow, right? And when I look at the board having this as a value statement, as an indicator, it's helped us have conversations either externally with the stakeholders and even internally to document some of these things that may not have happened before. Like, we've had more receptiveness to some of our outside partners, knowing that in the end, you'll learn more about it. So those results policies, those value statements you choose matter very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the hard work of everybody who's involved in this.
Thank you for a good report. When was this indicator drafted? The amount of opportunities for students to engage in acts of environmentalism will increase over the previous year. Was that drafted when this policy was drafted in 2020, or has this?
Was it?
That's when it was revised.
The reason I ask is because, again, you've put a lot of work into this, but our job is to look at the data. If this has been in existence for a while, I do find it surprising that we're still trying to figure out how to measure it, and that we would get a report, because the indicators that would increase over the previous year, and the report didn't really include what the previous year was. And so I'm struggling with saying that we're making reasonable progress. I think probably the progress is going on. I find the reporting disappointing when this has been in place for several years. So that's, I think, something that we could probably look at improving. If it was just last year, I could see why you're like, I don't know, what do you guys want? Here's the first year of it.
I think what I would mention on that is, again, as I mentioned, Indicator 1 specifies the amount of opportunities for students to engage in acts of environmentalism will increase over the previous year, and that has been shared, that has been brought forward, that data is there.
The data from last year was provided in this report?
Yep, 21-22 is in there and 22-23 is in there. So that information is within the documentation.
Right. But at the same time, while there is a greater number of individual items on the list for this past year compared to the prior year, I think it would be nice to again get a sense of growing the number of students who are participating, perhaps them participating in the data collection in the form of reflective assignments or encouraging them to share activities that they're taking at home and things that will help us gather more data. And if it is simply asking their teachers, maybe asking them 1 or 2 times more frequently.
I don't
want to put more burden on.
But I also.
I agree with what you're saying. It was kind of part of where I was going with there's not numbers with it.
Maybe on that Google form where you're querying teachers for input, just add a box where they can indicate estimated number of students involved.
I did. So I did collect that information, but it was really inconsistent. So there needs to be more clarity. And often it was, we took, our grade level went, and they didn't say 42, right? And yeah. So.
I think though I think they make great points, and I think it's something we need to consider. I think synergies going forward would be very helpful in us providing or getting the information. So if you can kind of push them along to give us that information, it'll be beneficial, because we're driven results, but we don't really have the actual results. We know that it's increased and it's better than last year, but in order to get some hard numbers would be very helpful as we move forward. And I think that ultimately falls on the teachers, whether we like it or not, or some form of that, where that we're able to get some more information on that Google Docs. Because we're planning ahead, and we know that things are improving, but by how much? And, so devil's in the detail, correct? And I think it would be nice to have a little more information as we move forward, if possible.
I'd also argue, though, that you had mentioned citizen science, which is what the board was using previously, and we realized that was not getting us the information that we wanted or needed to really measure this results policy, and so we shifted. And this is the first year of that shift, and so that is where we're at currently. And if we need to shift again, I'm sure that this board will help in that decision-making. But that is, I think that is exactly what we are hoping for, is being able to ensure that the data and the evidence that we have is tied to the results in a way that it measures the values of the board. So that is what we are trying at this point in time. And I think that Dr. Lahaki and the rest of the staff have done a good job, and we will continue to grow, not to rain on your parade here with the pun, but to grow our ability to measure. We are, I think, the only school district that is trying to measure this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Lahaki.
I would say that the wording of practice is unique. Generally, when other districts do this, it's surveys regarding perceptions towards environmentalism or climate. That would be quantifiable data that thus far the board hasn't been as keenly interested in as far compared to the actions. So we could survey staff and give you information like that. That would be an indicator that many other districts use. Or they'll use participation in clubs, after-school activities. You know, if we have a hiking club or a fishing club, what do those numbers look like? Those are quantifiable ways that we haven't gone down so far, but you're right, this is a work in progress. So we started with citizen science. That wasn't giving the board what they wanted. We got feedback, we were able to make some adjustments, and this is where we're at today. In January, I'll be back and with some different indicators, ways to measure this that you can provide some feedback on.
So with the citizen science, I obviously don't know, so the citizen science, did that change the indicator itself? Or what's the shift with citizen science?
Citizen science was a way to gather the evidence for this indicator, and it did not gather the data that we were hoping for. And so we are
The indicator
changing.
was the same.
Yep.
Okay.
So it was the amount of opportunities will increase. The evidence that we provided last year was the citizen science opportunities, and it just didn't meet the board's expectations.
Okay.
You know, it was a way to measure action, the environmental activity logs, that was another way, and so Dr. Lahaki went out and found that. So in a way, it is presented for the first time this year in this way, but it's something we have been working at for a couple of years, to your point earlier.
Yeah, and not to reopen this book, but citizen science, what it involved was partnership in research with an external organization. And it was good that we were able to partner with the DNR and these different organizations to have action research occur. However, we were subject to the whims of an external researcher. Perhaps they only wanted to work with a school or a grade level, or maybe the research was only going to be for 1 year. So that ongoing built into the curriculum research piece was going to be elusive for us to meet the definition of citizen science. And for that and other reasons, it didn't make sense to continue when we went with this one.
Dr. Lahaki, in your next steps, you mentioned the tracking system and the curriculum piece. Can you talk a little bit about how the science curriculum is revised or at what timeline that is? I know for our 3.5 and 3.6, when the social studies portion was examined, we had the opportunity to pull out some rubrics related to those results. Do you see it in the coming year or so, the opportunity to do that for this one?
Yes, if we can get those partnerships systemic across our entire district. For example, I keep using Grow La Crosse as the example. If we do have school gardens in each of our sites, then their actions and activities, we can measure not only what they do, but the learning associated with it. Right now, I could do that, but you would only get partial representation of the district data.
And I think the other challenge there is, in 5 and 6, it's recognize the impact, demonstrate awareness. Those are set up to kind of like test in a classroom pretty easily. With that practice verb and trying to meet the board's intent there, it's got to be a catalog of some sort, to try and see what they've actually done, not if they, a different way to say that might, instead of practice good stewardship towards the environment, it might be understand what good stewardship of the environment is, and that could lend itself to a test or something, but it wouldn't be kids out there doing the thing. And I applaud the board in choosing a value that is action, but it does put us in a pickle as far as measuring it, and so that's been a work in progress to this point, and I can see Dr. Lahaki has plenty of steps for us to improve for next year.
Right. If you look at the first page of the report, those are the 5 different ways you can basically measure environmentalism. We report on action, but if instead the focus was on skills, attitude, knowledge, those are things that we can assess and provide that feedback. So.
I just want to thank you for being the guinea pig with so many of us new people at the table. This had to be a rough report, and I appreciate your patience with us.
I have 2 things you can add to your list of evidence. Mike Lawrence at Hamilton Soda fundraised for and installed a hydroponic tower that grows lettuce for the cafeteria. So you can count that like 270 kids impacted. Yeah.
Right. Like Central has one as well. What is the impact? How deeply connected are they? It's hard to come up with
It's pretty cool
numbers.
because the kids harvest it too. So anyway, and then Hamilton Soda also has a Habitat Renew storm water runoff collection drainage type of system with signage that's educational as to why that effort is important.
And since we're,
Go ahead.
since we're thinking about art today as well, there are any number of opportunities where the students engage in nature-based art practices. They use found materials and recycling art. And maybe I missed it, but I don't think that was something that was represented as either like knowledge or awareness or attitudes, but that certainly would speak to those areas.
The one was the paper making, specifically, that was a recycled art project.
Yep.
That was added, but you're right.
And the leprechaun traps.
Yeah, leprechaun. It is challenging. I think the more we start to talk about it together, the more you realize the challenge of trying to capture the amount of activities, or the number of activities.
One final question for you, Dr. Lahucky. How would it help or hinder or neutral your ability to gather data if we actually built the activities into the curriculum as you talked about earlier versus the teacher's implementation, which is kind of what we're at currently?
Much easier.
Yeah.
That's why we're working in that direction. I can give you much better data. It takes time to build that ship, though.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Question and a comment, I guess. So when I read through this report, I felt like there's a lot of teachers and community members that were driving these actions. And we've talked about a few things about ways that we can help standardize and help the teachers and our staff deliver this to our students. So how engaged are you with our teachers and staff to help develop, whether it's a standards-based curriculum or maybe a broader plan to help drive this? Because I think there's a lot of people that are driving it right now. And I want to make sure they have a voice at the table to make sure that they're getting their say and they're giving their ideas to the curriculum. What's the plan to do that, or what's that look like in the district right now?
In this particular situation, I was actually the science coordinator when I first came to the district, so I have some working knowledge of what that looks like. We've transitioned over the last few years from supervisor-led content areas where it was a principal or an assistant principal to those that are teachers. So our content area coordinators are almost all teachers in our district that are actual practitioners in science. I work with the content area coordinators to ascertain what the needs are, and we use a professional development time to keep gathering feedback. We have a teaching and learning committee that meets monthly. That's our kind of communication conduit back and forth. But then I regularly meet with the different content area coordinators individually to find out what the exact needs are that they're hearing from their teachers, and also what's happening in their classroom. That's kind of the communication structure for that.
Okay.
And we do all the budgeting together.
Okay. And the last question I have is, so we talked about GROW and WISCOR. How is that funded right now? Because I know our school has GROW.
They're funding it themselves.
That's what I thought. So is that model going to change if we're going to try and standardize, or is it going to continue to fund back to the PTOs and?
I'll give you an example. Well, I went back to the field trip example. That was funded by PTOs, by parent groups, et cetera, and volunteers. That's what we're trying to do with, we systematize things so that Southern Bluffs gets district busing to come to the nature place to have that. We built in, we originally had a contract with WISCOR And now we've changed it to a more of a fiscally responsible model of how much we actually use it, rather than just a generic contract. So we work those things out. We fund that, though. Science is one of the larger budgets, content area in our district.
Yeah, I would say where we try to create equal opportunities, we start to incur more of a fiscal responsibility. You know, if it's a one-off that school does, that's a special thing. If they're at Summit and they're going ice fishing, the school district may have a lower responsibility for the financing of that. If it's a common experience that we want every student to have, that elevates our fiscal responsibility, and to rely on fundraisers for something like that would be less appropriate. But there are places where it's still aspirational and we want these experiences for all kids, but it is a challenge to find the funding for some of those things. And so it is still through partnerships and fundraising to make those things happen.
That's why I asked the question, if we're going to try to bring a standardized curriculum out to the districts, I just want to understand the model that was going to fund it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, kind of a conceptual one, sorry. And anybody with knowledge on this maybe can speak. So when we're thinking about equity of opportunity, so my daughter at Emerson always raves about the walking trips they do to the marsh. And if we're thinking about Southern Bluffs in particular, that the exact opportunity, right, of walking to the marsh is not really feasible from where they're at. But is something, are we looking at things in terms of parity and like walking to the Paul Stry Nature Reserve? Which, if I'm remembering my geography, is
That
what?
would be closer to State Road.
State Road, excuse me, not Southern Bluffs. Well, Southern Bluffs is on the bluffs. Maybe they just go up.
Or go to the river.
But do you understand my question, though?
Yes.
Do we count those the same? Because, I mean, I think the strength of our model is that the qualitative data helps us gauge the quality of the experience, which the purely quantitative data, the numbers of students, is only useful if the experiences themselves are valuable and we're measuring them as such. So I appreciate the strength of the qualitative approach we're taking here. But are we able to make distinctions like that, I guess?
Yes, so individual buildings have unique opportunities, right? And they're able to do some things, and as Dr. Engel said, if we can build it in the curriculum and we have the funds to support all the schools, if, for example, them going to the marsh, we'll do it, right? We'll do it. It's just a matter of prioritizing, some of the expenses we have so that all kids can do it rather than just some. But still, if you're at a school where you can walk somewhere, why wouldn't you take advantage of it?
Right.
And so we don't say no to those opportunities. We just want to say is yes as a district as often as we can.
Yeah, and there'll be unique things that happen at State or Southern Bluffs or Northwoods or Summit or Emerson or Hinchin, that are not found elsewhere. And, the students that happen to attend Emerson may have a unique relationship with the marsh. The students that attend Northwoods may have a unique relationship with their backyard because they've got 18 acres there and they can, do a low ropes course and other things. So each school kind of has that unique relationship. Hamilton might go to more productions at Viterbo because it's right there and they have a special relationship. But the common experiences we want to ensure that every student has.
Thank you, Dr. Lehecki. All right, so next on our agenda, another information item, the 2023-24 proposed budget administrative goals. I'll pass it over to Dr. Engel again.
And if you'll humor me, I've got another bit of context to provide. And this is actually a part of our operational expectations, OE5, that Ms. Sprang oversees. And it doesn't seem like it on the surface because it's not a monitoring report, but I just want to talk a little bit about operational expectations and that monitoring as it relates to coherent governance, and then the specifics as it relates to this particular one. So operational expectations policies are the gold standard for operations with which the superintendent and staff are expected to comply as they make day-to-day decisions for which we have delegated authority. The purpose of operational expectations monitoring is to assure the board that the superintendent and staff reasonably understand the values underlying the board's policies and provide data-based evidence that the organization is operating in a compliant manner. The board has delegated substantial authority to the superintendent to do their job, but the trade-off is for the board to receive solid evidence that the superintendent's actions and decisions, and those made by every part of the organization, are consistent with the values represented by the policies. Some boards appropriately look at the monitoring process as one built on the theme of trust but verify, a nice Reaganism. Effective monitoring is a formal, planned process, not a random or rote act, and effectively performing this responsibility assures the board that organizational performance is consistent with the board's values, as expressed in the operational expectations policy, allows the board to delegate with the assurance that it will know the true operational condition of the organization, provides important information to the board about the organization's operations, and arms the board with the information necessary for its support and advocacy roles, and it builds the other half of the CEO's annual performance portfolio. The administrative goals in this case are part of the monitoring process for OE5 financial planning. The budget development process is a long one, and elements of the budget book are presented from May through October and to spread out the information at relevant times. It's also included in our board calendar, kind of the budget pieces there, to kind of keep folks kind of knowing when things are coming. And it starts with the administrative goals, which will be presented tonight. Administrative goals are a reflection of the results policies and are arranged as such. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Sprang for any additional context you'd like to provide around this one.
Well, our budget is built on, these are the reasons why we have a budget and expenditures to support these goals and our students. This will be in the budget book, so.
I can take questions now, or I can explain the goals. Obviously, we can all read, but. 5 simple goals. They are a bit aspirational in nature, and they align to our results policies. The first is Results Policy 1, Mega Results. Students will discover and develop their talents and abilities will be prepared to pursue their dreams and aspirations while contributing effectively to their local, state, national, and global communities. The administrative goals under this one are all students graduate college and career ready. And number 2, student outcomes are not correlated with student demographics. The second results policy, academic performance. Students will demonstrate a high level of individual success using multiple measures of performance. We could highlight any number of administrative goals in this, but reading being foundational and a strong area of emphasis in recent years. The administrative goal is all students read proficiently. And then school board results policy 3 involves citizenship. We talked about that a little bit today. Students will demonstrate the educational, social, cultural competency necessary to participate as contributing citizens in diverse global communities. And the 2 administrative goals there are all students feel like they belong and all students are engaged. And I would caveat the engaged. For the last year and for this upcoming year, what we're thinking about with engaged is attendance. That's the more specific, actionable thing under that. The pandemic kind of rewrote a lot of norms and social expectations. And it came at the same time we were reevaluating accountability measures in our school district. And so we have seen attendance become a larger issue. And it's reflective of a state, national, and actual worldwide issue. The same problems we're having, they're experiencing in Holland and England and in China. Attendance has become a larger issue. And so that will continue to be a focus of ours as we move forward.
So the questions I have is, I have several questions, but first, student outcomes are not correlated with student demographics. Can you explain that? I want to make sure I don't read something into it that's not there.
Absolutely. So if we have, let's say, 50% of our students are on free and reduced lunch, have some economic disadvantage. If we give any test, a standardized test, let's say the ACT, and the average ACT score for all of our students is 23. We would.
That would be awesome.
That would be awesome. Aspirational, like I said. We would want to ensure that when we look at students who are in poverty and those that aren't, that the average is still 23.
Okay.
You know, we wouldn't want to see the students that aren't in poverty to have a 25 and the students that are in poverty have a 21. And so whether it's socioeconomic background, race, gender, identity, whatever it might be, we just want to ensure that as best we can, our results are reflective of the diversity of our students, and we're not unintentionally providing advantage to one and disadvantage to another.
Thank you, that's very helpful. On the second section of the academic performance, I was really surprised to not see math in there, since so much of our standardized testing is reading and math scores. And maybe a particular budget has to focus on one or the other, but I'd love to see both of them in there. That's just my opinion. And then on the involved citizenship, I was wondering, students are engaged in what? And so I think perhaps it would be helpful to, because it's a goal and it can't measure the goal, the results of it if you don't know exactly, you know, as connected to attendance. And good luck with that. I mean, I'm the Human Services Director of Trumbull County, and truancy in schools, I'm just so sick. Schools are sick of talking to us about it. We're sick of talking about it. COVID created a whole big mess, and it's been a struggle, and now it's starting to embed itself in families in certain unexpected and unintended ways, and it is difficult, so difficult. But I'm glad you're working on it, because we've got to turn this around before it gets too embedded, so thank you.
Yeah, the attendance stuff is starting to get a little scary, and it's more at the secondary level than at the elementary, as it's always been. But I think we're over 40% of our students are chronically absent, which is more than 10% of a school year. And sometimes during the COVID years, when we were intentionally having kids stay home for 10 days at a time, you know, per health department recommendations, that made some sense that kids would quickly rise to that level. Unfortunately, some of those habits have remained, and a kid will be ill and they'll take more days at home than is now, you know, necessary under DHS and everything else. And so we want kids to come back sooner than they are, but some of those habits got in place. You know, what's most scary is I think we have over 400 students who have missed more than 50% of school this year. And that's terrifying. You know, what is the long-term outcome of that trajectory? And we have incredible teachers who make connections with those parents, principals who work every day to get those kids to school, school counselors, social workers, people knocking on doors, nudge letters, all the things that we can think of within our control to help encourage those students to come to school. But for a variety of factors in families and other things, they've chosen not to send their child, or they don't get here. And so it's an opportunity for us to continue to focus on, and it will be ever more a focus for next year as well.
Yeah, I don't want to hijack this report, but I would love to hear at some future meeting sometime. There have to be a number of students that have fallen so far behind academically, like going to school seems like, why go? I'm so far behind, what's the point?
Yeah.
And how many are there, and what are we doing for them? I'm sure there's plans, but I'd love to know more about that.
Yeah, I think that would be a great workshop item just for professional development, to come in and we can have.
My least favorite word.
Or it could be an information item too. I mean, it doesn't matter where we do it. It's just a matter of, you know, what level of discussion you feel comfortable with. So, you know, I can certainly have our Director of Community Services come in and talk about our efforts there and what our plans are for next year. They are ongoing and substantial, and we'd be happy to talk to the board and educate folks on it.
Thank you so much for all your answers. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Dr. Engel, so I'm assuming that Attendance Matters campaign kind of emerged out of that focus on attendance last year. And we heard in the linkage tonight some kind of mixed reviews of the success of our strategies that we're using to encourage attendance. Are we continuing with that kind of approach, or do we have like new strategies we're going to try?
Yeah, the Attendance Matters approach, we knew that this was going to be a challenge coming to this year, because for the last 2 years attendance was a challenge, and so it was a renewed effort. There is a clearinghouse for what works in attendance, all the evidence-based strategies that there has been any research on, as well as you know, just model practices in various states that have really focused on this as well. So we've drawn from all of the experts and best practice to align our efforts. We didn't make anything up. We were, doing what best practice would indicate. And it just hasn't moved the needle as much as we would have liked this year. There are other communities in our surrounding area that have had more success in their attendance works process, and so we're learning from them as well. But our context is a little bit different. We have 52% of our students that experience poverty. We have different demographics and different cultures in our community than some of our surrounding neighbors. So there are different challenges in La Crosse than you find in Holman or Bangor. That's a reality. And so there are some lessons to be learned. There are also some unique things that happen here that don't happen elsewhere. And so the folks that we reach out to then are, Appleton or Fond du Lac or Wisconsin Rapids or Wausau, places that have maybe a more similar context than our immediate neighbors, even though we're all working on the same thing.
On the budget, we talk a lot about students, which should clearly be our focus, but I think we'd be remiss if we didn't note our teachers and staff. They're the one that drive the results. I don't see them mentioned. We talk about students, which again, is the point, but I think they don't get the results unless we have great teachers and staff driving that. So it's a big part of our budget discussion will be around some of those things. So I just, can you walk me through why maybe you worded some of the things the way you worded them?
As far as the administrative goals?
Yeah.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, our job is student achievement. That is what we're here for. Everything else is a crucial element in getting there. But at the end of the day, what we're interested in is, did the students achieve or not? My job is to facilitate the work of everyone in our organization to get there. A teacher's job is to facilitate the work of students getting there. And so the primary outcome is student results. It's the key levers are obviously the staff that work with students every single day and the resources that they need to be successful. And so in terms of our administrative goals, it starts there. And then were we to layer all the things that are out there that support that process, it would really be all of our monitoring reports. So if you look at our operational expectations monitoring reports, our results monitoring reports, those are all of the things that support that foundation for these particular outcomes. And so these goals are not to dismiss the work of anyone in our organization. It's just that these at the end of the day are what we're focused on. If we don't do this, we haven't done our job, regardless of what happened below there. And everything underneath there needs to be as good as it can be for those results to occur.
Thank you.
Dr. Angel, I have a wording question as well, actually. I'm curious in your administrative goal number 1, the idea of college readiness. So do you have more like specific metrics for that term readiness that relate not simply to, like GPA and like resume points, but, and this is my particular interest as a teacher in higher education who emphasizes the first year, that the sort of like college preparatory, like the proximity that some students have to the way college runs that others don't have. And do we have programs in place that we are able to measure that are helping, for example, students who will be first generation college students in making a smoother transition, because that's where a serious amount of attrition takes place.
Yeah, the transition programs, there is elements of that in some of our high school curriculum. In terms of general college and career readiness, I could invite Dr. Lahaki back up here to talk at length on it. But we do have a report that comes in, I think it's R2, and it talks about a variety of different factors that research has shown that correlate to college and career readiness. And it's based on high school things that students do in high school. So GPA, ACT scores, those are kind of like gross typical ones. Gross meaning like large.
Also distasteful.
Maybe also gross. Nobody likes to take the ACT. But there's other things like work experience that is like a job placement, so like a youth apprenticeship. participation in 2 or more extracurriculars, shows engagement, diligence, hard work. Taking a college credit class, even if you don't earn college credit, by pushing yourself and trying out that experience and identifying as a college student in that experience. That's another example. And so we track all of those things to get at college and career readiness. And I think it's a table of like 7 or 8, maybe even 9 different elements that research has shown to be predictors of college and career readiness. And our goal is both. We want every student to have options as they move forward. And we know that some students are going to choose a plumbing apprenticeship, and that's great. And they're going to make a ton of money and have a great career, and that'll be awesome. And there's others that are going to choose the military and go off and do that for a period of time. And there's other students that are going to go straight to 4-year or 2-year. But I think particularly with the pandemic and just this changing concept of what it means to work in our world today, kids change careers more frequently than they used to. They got to shift, they got to pivot. And you might start out as a plumber, but eventually think to yourself, you know what? I'm not only good at plumbing, I'm good at leading people. And I want to own a business, but I don't know the business part of it. So I need to go back to tech school for a little bit, pick up some skills around accounting so that I can run my business efficiently. And so we want kids to be ready at whatever point in their year, in their life, to go to any level of college, to be successful in the workplace. Most college kids are working. We want them to be good at that too. So it's college and career ready is our goal, and there's this variety of metrics, and we track them and we report them to the board every year.
I think it's nice to see that you have career ready in there as well, because that is important, and you're 100% correct. Not everybody's ready for college. And some people, start out the career and then a few years down the line, they end up going to school, but that's important. And, the plumbers, the welders, the building trades, that's important, especially to our area here.
Absolutely. I think in the, 90s, we kind of got caught in this 4-year or bust trap, and it was reflective of our curriculums and our philosophies and our school counseling procedures. I think over the last 2 decades, we've gotten a lot better about expanding what it means to be successful and what the pathway looks like. And so I'm very proud of the incredible opportunities we have in our school district, like the ACE Construction Academy, our youth apprenticeships that put kids in workplaces right away as a junior. And then our academic and career planning process, which allows kids to explore the full range of things that are out there, not just college-derived careers. So I think we've got a good process in place here, and look forward to reporting all that information later.
Any last questions or concerns before we move on? All right, thank you, Dr. Engel. So moving on to the announcements piece, and I'm listed on here twice. So I will briefly say my last announcement as the LPEF representative. Just May 9th is Thank a Teacher Day, and if you have time in the morning and would like to help drop off something to the various schools in the district, reach out to Nell. She can help partner you with a school if you have a preferred one. Also, I guess I'll announce that Katie Birkdahl will be the representative and providing all the announcements for LPEF after this day. So I'll move on to the president announcements. 2 things. Both coherent governance related. On May 17th and 18th at 6 p.m. there's some coherent governance training. And then on May 24th there's a full day Sun Prairie coherent governance opportunity that Ms. Steigerwald can share maybe over email reminders about the content covered for those. And that's all I have. Dr. Engel?
You have a thing about the graduations. My question is, do we have to let somebody know if we plan to attend any particular graduations? Or what that process is?
RSVP.
Okay.
Yep, to the person who contacted you, to RSVP.
Laura sent the
email
about the
I have to figure out the email, so thank you.
We can talk about it tonight if you want.
Thank you.
And if you think you can attend, and even if you haven't seen the email, just let Laura know, and we'll make sure that it gets communicated to the folks. We'd love to have you all there. They're fun days. It's awesome to see these kids graduate. The day at the lacrosse center, a little long, but once again, the best day of the year. Well, after the first day of school, then graduation.
Graduations are pretty cool.
My announcements, first, May 5th is School Lunch Hero Day. Our school lunch folks are incredible. In fact, one of them is so incredible. Jeanette Bartek from Southern Bluffs Elementary is this year's Wisconsin School Nutrition Association State Employee of the Year. So incredible. We are so fortunate to have amazing lunch ladies, cooks, managers in our school district. It's often the place where kids have a connection that they don't somewhere else. It's a place where they get to be themselves for a little while without maybe some of the expectations they find elsewhere. And so we're so thankful for our school lunch heroes. May 8th through 12th is Educator and Staff Appreciation Week. We have incredible educators in our school district and look forward to celebrating them. LPEF always has a great opportunity to thank a teacher. Along those lines, we also have someone in our organization who is being identified by the School of Education at UWL for a Pre-Service Educator Award. And that is, Christine Rocks. And she works with new educators coming into our school district and is being recognized for her good work. It's hard to attract and retain employees in this environment. It's no different in public education, and so we're thankful for people that want to shepherd in new folks into our organization. And lastly, on May 11th, there is another facility advisory committee from 6 to 8 at the Hogan Gymnasium. And you're all more than welcome to attend. We'll also be videotaping everything, so if you can't make it or you want to watch it on 2x speed on YouTube later, it'll be up online. All the materials from those meetings are present there as well.
Will summaries of those come to us on a regular basis?
Yes, after each meeting, we'll have minutes available of commentary and everything else, and so that will be provided to the board.
Okay, so the first one, has that been?
It hasn't been compiled yet.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right, moving on to agenda planning.
I'll make a motion to approve the May 15th, 2023 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections.
Second.
With a motion made by Mr. Korberg and a second made by Ms. Berkedahl to approve the May 15th, 2023 Board of Education agenda with any additions or corrections. We'll do a voice vote on this one. So all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, passes. And our last thing is board debriefing, and I was thinking about skipping it because I was thinking this will be a quick meeting, but we're approaching 8 o'clock. So I just will quickly say, like, this was, I think, a great meeting with great conversation, great questions that drove the conversation, so I appreciate that. These board debriefing pieces will come at the end of all of our meetings, and they're an opportunity for board members to discuss, like, what went well, what could be improved on. It's not an opportunity to rehash previous items, but just the process piece and where we can improve as a board. So if anybody wants to add in any thoughts, now's your time, or we can move on to our meeting upstairs, our workshop upstairs.
Nice job doing a president job first time.
I was nervous. Thank you. All right, we'll adjourn to our workshop upstairs in room 209.